Hello, and welcome back. Welcome to episode 3 of our 5-part series. First 2 sessions, we explored Dr. David Hawkins' map of consciousness, and then moved from understanding calibration and energy and impact on view of self, emotion, view of the world, view of life, view of God. And then talked yesterday more about the experience of when we are trying to come from the calibration of below 200 and the energy of force, and when we're coming from power. So today we're going to explore the 12 principles of empowered living. So those of you that have worked with us, we have our 12 pillars of transformation, or principles of transformation. These are the 12 principles of empowered living, extracted from Hawkins' work as seen through the lens and the heart and the eyes of Dr. Dyer. So let's just bring ourselves into presence and start by taking a nice deep breath. So breathe in and exhale. And just allow yourself to empty from the day, from depending on the time that you're watching this, from even what a few minutes ago may have held your energy or held your attention. Just allow yourself to receive and to listen and to learn. So what we know from our previous 2 sessions is that every emotion that we have carries a frequency, and that force drains and lowers vibration and frequency, and power gains, expands, and increases. And so today we're going to take that to a bit more of a practical level, and that realize through these 12 principles that the real everyday ways that we shift from pushing to flowing, from fear to trust, from ego to essence, what's possible in our lives and in our results. So principle number 1 is force creates resistance, power creates grace. So force creates resistance and power creates grace. And so when we try to control, to argue, or to demand, we will meet resistance. Always. So it just is. So force says, I'm going to make it happen. Power says, I align and allow. So grace lives on the other side of surrender. So those of you that do our work, it's the understanding that even before we move to accountability, Dyer would offer us the possibility that when I can move into a state of acceptance of what is, or a state of surrender, grace is the energy that follows. And then from a state of grace and from a place of grace, all sorts of other things become possible. So it's the idea that when things aren't moving, don't push harder. Simply soften and ask yourself, where am I forcing? And what would happen if I chose grace instead? What would it look like? What would it feel like? What would it sound like? So principle number 2, force is loud, power is quiet. So you can hear ego. It's noisy, it's defending, it's performing or performative, but power doesn't need volume. Its strength is simply presence. So some of the most transformational moments in my life have happened when I allow for the silence. And one who in the positive intelligence process recognizes that one of my top saboteurs is controller. As an anxious attachment style, it's not always easy to automatically pull the energy of power. It's much easier, more painful in the long run, but easier to move to that forced energy. So we know that in silence, it's the calm energy in any space, in any room, that makes people lean in. And it's rare, if ever, a breakthrough happens when someone is shouting. Principle number 3 is force pushes against, and power stands for. So force always has an enemy. So if you understand Cartman's triangle, it would be the idea that whenever there's drama, it's because one or both people have stepped on to the triangle, with the idea that if there's a victim, there must be a villain, and generally one person will over time step into the rescuer space. So we are in force when we are in drama, And it comes from the idea that when we're in force, there has to be an enemy, and in power, there doesn't need to be an enemy. So there is no need for one. And when we stand, so again, those of you that have done the fire journey, when we stand for compassion, for truth, for freedom, we elevate the field. And when you fight against what you hate or what you resist, in fact, you feed it. So instead of fighting fear, if I stand for love, then I create the frequency of love. And as we've learned in the previous videos, the importance of that and the impact that that can have, not just on my life and my results, but on the impact that I have on others. So instead of, for example, pushing against injustice, standing for humanity. So we have some wonderful teachers in our lives who have understood the struggle in relationship to the idea or the concept of the oxymoron of saying I'm fighting for peace, and the impact of what even the energy of fight creates. So principle number 4, force drains, power sustains. So force drains, power sustains. So force needs to constantly be fed. So it needs validation, it needs attention, it needs the perception of controlled results, and in the long run, it's exhausting. Power replenishes itself because it's actually sourced from within. So if you feel like you are moving through your day, through your week, through your month, through your life, depleted, you're not failing, you're forcing. So it's not a failure in the doing, it's the energetic piece of your forcing. So we realign, we breathe, and we can allow energy to make its way back into us and through us through stillness. Principle number 5 is force demands and power allows. So force demands and power allows. So force says it must happen this way. Power says I trust life's way. So just take that in. So just feel into the energy of what I just offered you. So force says it must happen this way, usually my way. And power says I trust life's way. So allowing isn't passive. It's powerful cooperation with reality. And when we release demands, then we open ourselves to divine timing, to having the experience of knowing what it is to have faith and confidence in the adage or the idea that I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. Principle number 6 is force consumes and power creates. So force burns through resources, power actually multiplies them. So when we operate from fear, we usually are operating from a context of scarcity, and so we hoard time, energy, love, all of the things that the universe and our lives would benefit from having more of or generating more of. And when we operate from love, we generate those same things. So think every act of generosity actually expanding the field, creativity, opportunity, abundance, and that we are never diminished when we give from wholeness. Principle number 7 is force depletes and power energizes. So force depletes and power energizes. So you know that energy vampire, that friend who drains you versus the one who lights you up, that if you understand it in the quantum world, that's frequency and vibration. And when you're aligned with truth, your very presence gives energy. And when you don't even have to do anything, people will feel stronger and more alive and more energized just being in your presence. So ask yourself, do I leave people fuller or emptier? Again, those of you that have done the fire journey, we did some very vulnerable work inside of that. And if we can suspend the desire to want to judge positive, negative, good, bad, right, wrong, and just open ourselves to the awareness, then all sorts of things can happen and the energy can shift from draining to energizing. Principle number 8 is force judges, power compassionates. So judgments closes hearts. Compassion opens hearts. So every time we condemn, every time, again, I go back to positive intelligence. It's beautiful how much so many of these concepts just weave their way together. Every time we condemn, we step below 200, and every time we understand and we come from that compassionate space, then we rise. So you don't have to agree to stay in compassion. So if something occurs, you don't have to allow from the space of I agree, and I can still stay in connection through the energy of compassion. Principle number 9 is force polarizes and power unifies. So we live in a world where for the last few years, I feel there have been so many things that we're being called to pay attention to and to take a position. And so it's the recognition that force divides us into wanting to position, into an us and a them. And power sees both sides and finds the commonality in our humanity and brings us back to where we're the same versus where we're different. And so when we can choose empathy over argument, we dissolve the walls of separation, and we know that unity is, again, not agreeing, it's shared being. So I'm going to say that again because it matters. Unity is not agreement, it's shared being. So we recognize that that's the part of us that is the same no matter what our position is, our posture is, or where we come from in the space we come from. Principle number 10, force costs, power flows freely. So force is expensive. It costs us emotionally, physically, usually financially, because it needs fuel. It needs fuel to keep going. Power is free because it's truth. And so when you're in alignment, life supports you. Synchronicities happen, synchronicities appear and doors open, and all sorts of things come when we step through the gateway, when we step through that space. Principle number 11 is force requires proof, power knows truth. So force requires truth, power knows truth. So force needs data, needs permission, needs justification. Power is intuitive, it just simply knows. It knows that kindness is always better than cruelty, that love heals and hate harms. So no study required, no need for wisdom or knowledge to be able to know that that feels true, and that the more we trust our inner knowing, the quieter our mental layer or the mind becomes, and the clearer our guidance gets, the more we're able to receive and to follow that guidance. So final principle, principle number 12, force weakens health, power strengthens vitality. So force weakens health, power strengthens vitality. So every negative emotion that we have suppresses our immune system. Every elevated one boosts it. So literally peace heals. And when you align with joy, your body responds, your body listens. That's why laughter, gratitude, and purpose are medicine. So again, if you lean into your awareness of, especially inside of the work of what we do in our process, is when we allow for the lighter energy of humor, the frequency of gratitude, and we're living on purpose, we feel like it's medicine to reach into those spaces. So I just want to offer you that these 12 principles are not rules, they're reminders, and that each one is a portal out of fear and back into alignment, and that you don't have to master them all at once. Just notice, where am I in force? And then choose one small shift towards power, that one decision to breathe, to trust, to release, to change your energy instantly. So I feel tired today, and not because I've been doing anything rigorous, but I'm in the process of really leaning into these concepts and reminding myself that the container that I hold, the content of my life, is a direct reflection of my context. And so knowing that there's space for me based on results to do some shifting, I reached out to one of the other blessed things about what I get to experience in my life is amazing people. So I reached out to Elise today for an SRT, spiritual release therapy session, and through that gained some huge awareness of where I'm at. One of the greatest things is, if you've ever done work with her, she starts with, are we prepped to work? And I was already prepped. She didn't have to do any clearing for that to happen. And that's based on the work that I've been doing over the past week or so. And then as we got to the end, one of the things that came through was the need for brain restructuring. And she said that in all the years she's been doing this, she really needs, spirit calls her to do that. And so took some extra time, a lot of time from her today. Thank you, Elise. And I feel that. I feel the impact. I feel the energy of that. And that's her all the way in Edmonton, me all the way in Mexico, and us crossing the energetic field and allowing her into my energetic field and to help me heal inside of that. So keep remembering that this is not anything you don't already know. It's an invitation to remember and perhaps check into where you're at and what might be blocking or getting in your way. So I'm going to invite you once again, take a deep breath with me. I'm going to offer you some affirmations of what we've covered today. I choose grace over struggle. I choose alignment over control. I choose compassion over judgment. I choose unity over division. I choose love over and over again. And every time I do, I live in power. And every time I live in power, the world gets lighter. So thank you for walking this path with me. The next episode, we're going to explore how to see through the eye of consciousness, how to witness the world itself transform as your vibration rises. So until then, keep choosing the energy that keeps strengthening you, keep rising, and keep loving. I'll see you tomorrow.